Virginia captured their first winning season since 2011 and are now looking to win the ACC Coastal. But can they do it? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Believe what you want, but the Virginia Cavaliers are the real deal in 2019. A year after going 8-5 and shutting out South Carolina 28-0 in the Belk Bowl, the Cavaliers had their sights set on an ACC Coastal title, and they certainly have the team to do it. They returned 6 starters on the offensive side of the ball and will be led by their star quarterback and Bryce Perkins, who threw for over 2,600 yards last year, 25 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions, and also rushed for 923 yards. So he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire ACC and can not only beat you through the air, but can also beat you with his legs. They do lose their star running back in Jordan Ellis, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, but they do have PK here and a very solid offensive line. So I don't expect much of a drop-off in production on the offensive side of the ball for the Cavaliers. Defensively, they return 8 starters, and I believe that Virginia has one of the best defenses in the entire nation. Not just in the ACC, but in the nation. Last year, they allowed just 20.1 points per game. They are going to be led by Jordan Mack at the linebacking position, Eli Hanback on that defensive line, and the very talented cornerback Bryce Hall. So this is a very deep and talented defense for the Cavaliers, and that will be the key to their success in 2019. They opened up the season against Pittsburgh, and this is a bit of a revenge game for Virginia because if you remember, Pittsburgh basically stole the Coastal crown from the Cavaliers last season. Came on the road to Virginia, beat them by 10 points. The Cavaliers had just cracked the top 25 rankings and were able to win 23-13. It's going to be a little bit different this year, though. This is going to be a tough test for Virginia right out of the gate. But Pittsburgh does lose their top 2 rushers in Quadre Olson and Darren Hall. So this game is going to rely on Kenny Pickett at the quarterback position and whether or not the defense, that's probably going to be the strength for Pittsburgh, can step up and shut down Bryce Perkins. I do not think that's going to be able to be the case. Virginia opens up the season 1-0 and 1-0 in ACC play and gets a little bit of revenge against a team that, had they beaten last year, probably would have ended up being in the ACC title game against Clemson. They get an easy win over William and Mary in week 2 before facing off against Florida State. So 2 of their first 3 games against ACC opponents. This Florida State game, very, very intriguing and not going to be an easy game whatsoever for the Cavaliers. They have not met the Seminoles since 2014, and they're lucky they get this game at home. If this was at Florida State, I would be projecting a loss here. This is a Florida State team that, yes, went 5-7 last year, but returned 16 starters. Like Bryce Perkins, they bring back a solid quarterback in James Blackman, who can do a little bit on the ground, not as much as Perkins, but should be able to develop his passing game a little bit more. They have a very solid running back. They own the edge there with Cam Akers and a defense that I think is very, very underrated. But with this game being at home, starting off 2-0, and Florida State, maybe, even though they're going to be much improved, still trying to work a few things out early on, I think Virginia gets a key win at home against the Seminoles. They start off the season 3-0. And then you notice that we didn't put an automatic W against Old Dominion either. And that's just kind of a little jab at Virginia Tech there for you Cavaliers fans because of what Old Dominion did to the Hokies last year, upsetting the number 13 ranked Virginia Tech Hokies by 14 points, one of the biggest upsets of 2018. Virginia will have no issue there facing off against Old Dominion, and Virginia Tech, who has a rematch against the Monarchs, will also have no issue with them either. Then Virginia faces a very stiff test, a team that made the college football playoff last year in Notre Dame. And this game is going to be on the road. And it's going to be extremely tough. South Bend is not an easy place to play, period. But Notre Dame finally found themselves a quarterback in Ian Book. He wasn't even the starter at the beginning of 2018. They kind of benched Brandon Wimbush, put in Ian Book, and you saw a drastic change in the way the entire Notre Dame team played and a drastic change in that Notre Dame offense. Ian Book is the man for the Fighting Irish. He returns his solid wide receivers, and the defense isn't getting a lot of credit like Florida State isn't, but is going to be solid in 2019. A return trip to the college football playoff might not be in store for the Fighting Irish, but a win against the Cavaliers will be. Virginia takes their first loss of the season, but not after a 4-0 start, so they're looking pretty good. They get a much-needed bye week going into probably their biggest game of the entire year on the road against Miami. This game, as well as the one against Virginia Tech, could very well determine who wins the ACC Coastal Division. Miami is a team that a lot of people are trying to write off like Florida State because of what happened last year. What people don't understand is that last year doesn't matter anymore. Miami brings in Manny Diaz, who I think is the best head coaching hire of 2019. He returns 12 starters, 6 on offense, 6 on defense, but brings in Tate Martell at quarterback, and that will be the key for the Hurricanes this season. Dan Enos, the offensive coordinator, will develop Tate Martell into a phenomenal passer, especially by October 11th, which is a Friday night game. Even though Virginia is coming off the bye week, if this game was in Virginia, I would absolutely be picking the Cavaliers. But like Virginia, I said they have one of the top defenses in the nation. Miami also has one of the top defenses in the nation. This could be a low-scoring game, but in the end, home field advantage plays a big role, and Virginia drops a big-time game against the Hurricanes for their second straight loss. And that's nothing to frown about here. Now, this could determine if they make the Coastal, win the Coastal or not, but 2 losses on the road to Notre Dame and Miami, both very solid teams, not that big of a deal. Back home against Duke, and this is a game that's very, very winnable for Virginia. Last year they beat Duke 28-14 on the road, and that was against a better Duke team than they will have this year. That was with a Duke team that had Daniel Jones, had a fairly potent offense. This year it's the other way around. They lose Daniel Jones. Quentin Harris steps in. He had playing experience, and I do believe that he will fill the holes greatly for Daniel Jones. I think he's going to fill him in shoes, and those offenses are going to do fine under David Cutcliffe. But the defense is going to be the key for Duke. This game, though, back at home for Virginia, they desperately need a win after losing 2 in a row. Bronco Mendenhall will not let his team kind of get in a slump. They beat a Blue Devils team that might be borderline bowl eligible in 2019, and they get a key win here. They also get a key win on the road against Louisville, and I don't mean to write that one off so quickly, but Louisville is a team that Virginia beat 27-3 last year, and while this game could also be fairly low scoring because Louisville returns 10 starters on the defensive side of the ball, they bring in a new head coach in Scott Satterfield, and they're dealing with an offense that didn't even average 20 points per game last year. Virginia's defense held opponents to just 20.1 points per game last year. If Louisville's offense can't find anything by this point in the season, it could get ugly once again, despite it just being on the road. Virginia gets another win in ACC play. On the road against North Carolina to kick off November. This is one that I have as a bit of a trap game for Virginia, and people will freak out when you hear me say that. They'll think I'm ridiculous. But North Carolina brings in Mack Brown. They do return 14 starters, and I've said in our other predictions that I don't expect big things out of the Tar Heels. But last year they were extremely competitive, and I know I said last year doesn't matter, but last year they were extremely competitive in all of their games. They went 2-9, but most of those losses were determined by just one possession. So they could give Virginia a bit of a fight here, especially after back-to-back wins, especially kicking off November and still in the ACC Coastal hunt. But I do think Virginia goes on the road and takes care of Mack Brown and the Tar Heels. They will get dominant once again. North Carolina is going to be going in the right track under Mack Brown. It's just not going to be in 2019. Virginia, another huge win on the road. They return home to face off against Georgia Tech, another team that has a brand new head coach in Jeff Collins, who is switching from the option offense to a more pro-style offense. It's going to be a drastic change for Georgia Tech, and it's going to be a drastic change for the ACC opponents' defense that they're going to be going up against because everybody's been so used to this option offense, now they're going to have to adjust. Georgia Tech looks solid in their spring game. They've looked solid in practices. Can it transition to the regular season? Not on the road against Virginia. The Cavaliers get another huge win over the Yellow Jackets, and this time the defense really steps up. It's going to really test this secondary, but I expect Bryce Hall to keep his group under control, and they get a win over the Yellow Jackets here, and they get their 4th straight win after back-to-back losses. They're just a 2-loss team heading into their final 2 games of the season. They get a week of rest before facing off against Liberty, and we didn't mark that down as an automatic W because Liberty could be a bowl team in 2019. They bring in Hugh Freeze, the former Ole Miss head coach. They have a very experienced offense led by Stephen Calvert at quarterback, who is 3rd all-time in Liberty passing yards. Could very well be number 1 by the end of 2019. This is a Liberty team that was also 6-6 last season and returned most of those starters from that team. So Virginia can't afford to overlook them, but with the bye week, with it being at home, I believe they take fairly easy care of the Flames. They get another win. And then the big game that I think everybody is looking forward to if you are a Cavaliers fan, the game against Virginia Tech, the big-time rivalry game. A team that Virginia has lost to 15 straight times. And they've had some agonizing losses over the past couple of years, including last year, a 34-31 overtime loss on the road against the Hokies. 2 years ago, couldn't generate any offense, fell 10-0. When will the streak end against the Hokies? It will end in 2019. Virginia, beats the Hokies, snaps that 15-game losing streak, and the reason is because they are at home. That plays a major role, and while Virginia Tech will have a much improved defense, 10 returning starters, and when you have Bud Foster, that's going to be huge. But I do believe that Virginia owns the offensive edge over Virginia Tech, and that's what gets them the edge. The offensive edge and home field advantage gets them the edge over the Hokies. They snapped that 15-game losing streak, much awaited if you are a Cavaliers fan. And if you look at that, Virginia is going to finish the season 10-2. And certainly in the mix, not just for an ACC Coastal Division crown, but also possibly a New Year's Six bowl game. And if you look at the schedule, I really don't think that Notre Dame game is up for much debate. I think the Fighting Irish take care of Virginia there. This Miami game could be, especially off of a week of rest. Maybe you have them losing to somebody else. But really, this schedule is extremely favorable. Outside of the Notre Dame game and Miami game on the road, it's extremely favorable for the Cavaliers. And a Coastal crown is not out of reach for Bronco Mendenhall and his Cavaliers squad. They are the real deal. If you're not buying the hype, you better start, because I'm expecting huge things out of Virginia in 2019. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here. Go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert. Check out our website, thegridironexpert.com. The link is in the description below. Sign up for our newsletter, check out our videos, and sign up for our expert picks, where you will pay just one-time fee, and you will get all of our spread picks for the 2019 season. That includes the postseason. So 150-plus spread picks for just a low one-time fee. You're not going to regret it, and it's something that every college football fan has to have going into this season. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time here on The Gridiron Expert.